Welcome to the No Budget Indie Filmcast, where we dip into the independent film universe to highlight those little films that you might not have heard about elsewhere. Will you agree with our panel? Or will our panel agree with each other? Tune in to find out. I am Milo Dennison, and with me, as always, is Claire Milan.
Hello.
And Cathal Feeney.
Hello.
Today, we're looking at a film called Bob Ross, Happy Accidents, Betrayal and Greed. So when it comes to the PBS stuff, there's in the US, which is public broadcasting for you Europeans. So in the hierarchy of public broadcasting, you've got like Mr. Rogers, and just under Mr. Rogers is Bob Ross. And then there's probably like, Ed Burns documentaries and stuff like that, and Doctor Who reruns. But so Bob Ross is kind of like a beloved person throughout the States. And so it's kind of funny when you see a documentary about him. And of course, they still play him up like, he's this wonderful guy, even though they kind of hint at times when he maybe wasn't as wonderful. But mostly this documentary is his son's story of how Bob got involved with this couple that kind of runs his business, the Wachowskis, I think.
Kowalskis. I think it's Kowalskis.
Yeah. You're probably right. Kowalskis. That sounds right. Yeah. Walt and Annette and Kowalski.
Annette, I think.
What?
Annette, is it?
Yeah. And Kowalski. Okay.
I think it's Annette, isn't it?
Yeah.
Annette?
Annette and Walter.
So he gets involved, we'll just say the Kowalskis. And at first, everything seems great. They're kind of running the business. He's doing his paintings for the show. He's becoming more and more popular and just really encouraging people to paint and doing these workshops. And people are coming to the workshops and learning his technique and that kind of stuff. And as it goes on, we kind of learn that there's a bit of a rift between them. And the Kowalskis are really just kind of working Bob out of the business, and the Kowalskis kind of take control of his name, his paintings, and the videos and that kind of stuff. And eventually, as we all know, Bob Ross dies. And what happens is the Kowalskis kind of own Bob Ross Industries. And his son is actually saying, hey, what about us? What about me, his son? What about the family and that kind of stuff? So there's that story aspect to it. And they get into Bob Ross's life a little bit. He was married twice. So they just kind of hint at the first wife, even though the son is actually from the first wife. So you think they would have talked about that relationship a little bit more. They talk about the second wife quite a bit. And they also hint that possibly Bob and Annette had an affair. We don't really see too much of that. So, maybe Bob wasn't as great of a person as he's kind of led to believe, but it sounds like he just really loved painting and really loved sharing the experience of painting and teaching painting. And in the middle of all of that, he kind of let the business get taken over, which is really more or less what this movie's about.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because I remember seeing Bob Ross, The Joy of Painting, since I was very young. It used to pop up on our national television on RT1. And I was always mesmerized by it. And it was amazing how calm he was, and how, it's such a simple setup. It's just literally a black curtain or black wall and then him painting. And even his voice as well was so calm and gentle. And they showed his a painter who he modeled off, and he was very, very different energy. But yeah, he comes across like he seemed like a genuinely lovely guy. And it was, and very tragic as well. I just think he comes across slightly naive. And when the Kowalskis came into his life, he seemed to trust them with everything. And then his son as well, you can really tell in documentary, his son is he's grieving and angry, and it's just very sad to see. And I was wondering as well, was that his natural hair with the perm? But it's actually, he actually got it permed. It wasn't a natural haircut, I thought it was an interesting documentary. And it's funny, I didn't watch it in one go. I watched it in 3 different parts because there was something missing out of it for me. There was something, as you said, it wasn't, I was trying to figure out whose mother the son was, but only touched on her very briefly. And he seemed to be in the military, I think, or in the Air Force before he started painting. And I'd love to hear more about that and more about the man behind the paintings he does. But they got stuck into the Kowalskis and all the kind of controversy. It seems a very, very sad end to his life. And he left this big, massive legacy. And yeah, there was something missing out of it. But it was funny because before tonight, I was looking at his paintings and the paintings behind. When you actually look at them, online, they're absolutely stunning. And it's amazing he could do them within 30 minutes. Like, that's just amazing. They're so vivid and beautiful. And that's the legacy he leaves behind. But the Kowalskis, they still own his name. And I think they still have his, like, all his branded stuff. And it's just desperately sad for the son that he looked like his father wants to leave him the legacy. And there's still a lot of stuff going on, legal stuff. And I know the Kowalskis didn't want to be involved in the documentary. They didn't contribute anything to the documentary. I think there was footage from other stuff they found. But yeah, it's just desperately sad. But there is something missing for me. I'd like to know more about who he was. And I didn't really get that as much as I wanted to from the documentary.
Well, I had never heard of Bob Ross.
Really?
No, I hadn't. And I'm interested to know that he was on RTE. Must have been after my time, giving away something there. So I approached this with an open mind. I was thinking, okay, it's probably something interesting here. And the way it was sort of pitched, there was a story of, betrayal and trust and okay, there's going to be something juicy in this that'll make it worth my while watching. But I found it was caught between two stools. This documentary, it was trying to tell the story of Bob Ross, give a big bit of background. And for people who knew Bob Ross, which seems to be quite a lot of people, it would have been interesting, nice little tidbits of information, like his hair, for instance. But then it would sort of drop in sort of hints to the Kowalskis, and you'd be sinister kind of, references to them, the baddies, they're the baddies of the story. But it sort of mentioned them, and then it kind of moved away, went back to exploring his own sort of development as a TV star and a painter, and his background and his relationship with his son, and I just found that they tried to turn like a half-hour documentary into a 90-minute documentary. Like I was a bit disappointed by that. There wasn't enough for me as somebody who doesn't know Bob Ross to be interested in. It was okay. But I was waiting for the real meat of the story the whole time, and it wasn't until the very near the end that you got that. So,
yeah, I think he's probably a more interesting guy than what the documentary portrays. Yeah, it's just there's something lacking, and they said that the phone call they seem to try to create a bit of controversy where there doesn't seem to be controversy, or try to mine stuff that. Yeah, there's no meat to it, really. I mean, there was accusations thrown around, but there was no real meat to it. I was waiting for the twist or something massive, but it didn't really. It was so hard to watch, and that's why I watched it in 3 parts.
Yeah, it's true, because it's basically the son's story with a couple other stories added in, like a couple painters that knew him, like it had the other couple of painters that painted the flowers and stuff that they kind of went off to the Wachowskis about that as well. But it's kind of like the filmmaker couldn't fully decide what story they wanted to tell, and kind of tried to and jumped around a little bit too much, and it's like, yeah, if you're going to tell the story of the Wachowskis.
Kowalskis.
If you're going to tell that story, then tell that story. If you're going to tell Bob Ross's story about, the paintings and the teaching, then tell that story. But yeah, just dabble these little things in here, but then don't actually hash any of them out. It does kind of make it a bit
Yeah. It was like a
wanting.
jigsaw puzzle, but bits missing. And from two people's perspective, one person's perspective. And it was just a little bit, mixed match of everything. And it was hard to grasp who exactly the man was. I came out at the end of it, and I just didn't know.
I think he did come out reasonably well out of it. I was
Yeah.
expecting it to be something that would taint his legacy in some way, but it wasn't. Okay, even if he did have an affair with Annette Kowalski, so what? Like, I mean, he didn't seem to be. He seemed to be genuine like the whole time, and he genuinely wanted to leave his estate to his son, and he was sort of double crossed. Like it was very annoying what happened. Like even though I don't know these people and so on, you do sort of feel that he was somehow betrayed the son, like, and he was swindled out of his legacy, and he can't even use his father's name. So, by the way, spoiler alert if anybody hasn't watched it yet. But like it is quite sad. But like I said, it didn't really get to that part of the story until the very end.
Yeah, he can't even use his own name, really. The last name, because it was what's the son's name? Jay?
Steve. Actually, he can use it. I think they came to an agreement with the Kowalskis
Where he can use it now?
whereby he can use his own name. Yeah.
Okay. So he can use Steve Ross, because they kind of got into that a little bit. So that's good, I guess. But I mean, kind of annoying that he had to, work out an agreement with the Kowalskis.
Yeah, which seems ridiculous. It's all wrapped up in sort of, the legalities of it. It just seems completely bizarre. Like, and I'd say, like I said in the film, that they couldn't afford to appeal. I'd say if they could have afforded to appeal, it would have been completely different. And I don't know if those avenues are closed off now, but maybe not. Maybe there's more to come.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the press from this documentary will help, or the money that they made from it they can use towards that, or maybe they can work out some kind of a deal. Because like they talked about the contract that they had. So it was with Bob Ross's brother got like 51%, and Bob Ross's son got 49%. So then the brother signs it over to the Wachowskis. Well, that still means that the son would have 49%. So why, but they don't really answer that question of like, why is he getting nothing from that 49%? So did he also sign something over that they don't mention in this? Or was there something else going on in there? So I think they also intentionally maybe left something out. I could be wrong on that, because this is it's a very
there's
one-sided
something
documentary.
missing.
Yeah,
I'd say there was lawyers going over this, and they said, "Listen, take that out. Just there's something missing out of it that is there, and it's on documentary."
And that did seem quite strange that he was completely cut out of it. I'm sure, like as Claire said, lawyers have looked at this and decided that he has no claim on it, which it just seemed very, very odd.
Yeah, it's too bad, because Bob Ross is, I mean, he's got that soothing voice. He's great just to sit back. You throw some Bob Ross on and relax and listen to him painting some happy trees, and he's just fantastic. And I agree with kind of what you said, Carl. I think seemed very genuine. Like, I get the impression that what you saw for the most part is what you get in regards to his personality.
And that's what they said in it. And it's funny, because when I saw this documentary on Netflix, I thought it was going to be a massive scandal now, because I'd seen his programs and he was so lovely and gentle. I just thought, okay, there's going to be really big dirt dug up on Bob Ross, but there wasn't. He actually was like that, and they said that, and it's nice, because normally the situation is different. You see these people on television, they're completely different in real life. But yeah, he was a genuinely nice guy who adored his painting and adored teaching it. And
and even with his interactions with the public, what they showed, he just seemed to be genuinely quite engaged with them. Although you could say that his hair was fake and his voice was fake, because he did say, didn't he, that he deliberately put on that soothing voice, because he thought it would come across much better, and he was right.
They didn't mention it in this, but I actually saw something about Bob Ross a long time ago, and he was talking about the hair. And he actually said at one point that he actually was he was sick of it, but it was his image. And so he had to keep it.
I can imagine, yeah. Unless he had a wig or something.
Yeah.
But then again, if he's seen it in public and everything like that.
Just normal hair. And then when he goes on his show, pops the wig on and does it.
It's like if he was still alive today with the wig, it would look very strange, wouldn't it?
Totally. All right, guys, let's rate it. Who wants to go first?
Okay, I'll go first. So, yeah, it was a bit disappointing, this documentary, but it's lovely to know that Bob Ross is genuinely a nice guy, but there's stuff missing from it for me, and I just find it hard to keep my attention on it. So I'm going to give it 2.5 stars.
I did watch it in one sitting, but I was fooled into thinking that any minute now it's going to move up a gear. So I didn't know Bob Ross. I didn't really have a particular interest in his backstory, and then ultimately I felt they tried to balloon a half-hour documentary into a full feature documentary. So I will give it 2 stars.
Ooh, you guys are harsh. Harsh.
Yeah, I know, I feel a bit guilty now.
Yeah, I mean, this is Bob Ross, people. Bob Ross.
Well, Carl didn't know him, so.
I'm going to go 3 stars. I was leaning towards 3.5, but you guys kind of talked me down with your sad reviews, or with your ratings. But yeah, it was nice to watch, but it could have been better, unfortunately. But I don't think this should taint Bob Ross's life in any way, because as a person, he was too fantastic. Well, No Budget Filmcast listeners, there you have it. We are a bit iffy on the film. If you want to watch it, it's on Netflix. Check it out and let us know what you think. If you rate it a bit higher than we do, a bit lower, or if you agree. You can reach out to us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at No Budget Show, or leave a comment. And that's it. So we'll just say, see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.